Bad language coming at ya. Don't watch if you're a kid. What's going on, you half-eaten packet of fucknuts? The wino is back with his Ultimate Fighter review. And guess what? It's the last episode of the first round, the quarterfinals. We got the semis next week. And it was a good episode, I'm happy to say. The fight was short, but entertaining. The shit going on before the fight was actually a little intriguing for once. They had a few storylines going. The biggest one being the injury story. And I've got some fucking thoughts on that, so stick with me. And then we got the semi-finals announced afterwards. So come along with me for the review. Now there's going to be some jump cuts in this one. Just getting you ready for that. I'm still going to rant, but hopefully I won't ramble as much. So the episode starts with the first little storyline we're going to get throughout it. And that's the third Urbina brother getting a shot at the Ultimate Fighter. I remember the first two. Hector even got into the UFC, I believe. I don't think he lasted there too long. And both Hector and Elias, they both lost in their Ultimate Fighter fights. So this is, look, Gilbert even said it himself, third time's a charm. So you've got the family dynasty story there a little bit, but also it needs to be like a family redemption story because they haven't gone too well so far. Just hearing the name Urbina when he first got put into the cast, I was like already thinking, no, he probably won't do too great because his brothers didn't do too great. But hey, man, you can't judge. You know, I was going to say you can't judge a book by its cover. I suppose that kind of works. But, you know, you can't judge one brother based on the other. And we'll see that as the episode goes on. And that's not talking shit on the Urbina brothers, by the way. Just getting to the show is a great accomplishment that most people never get. Like, I was just saying, my expectations were tempered by the past results. All right, and then we get into Hunsinger's package. To be honest, I don't remember a whole lot about his personal life and stuff, but what I did notice when they were going through his package is finally they gave us some good training footage. They gave Ortega given some good grappling coaching, and I'm like, God damn, finally, we've got Ortega. We've got Hannah Gracie on the Ortega side. We've got Craig Jones on the Volkanovski side. We could get some good technical kind of grappling tutorial type shit and watch guys working through it in these training sessions. And I remember when I saw this at first, that's sprung to my mind. I was like, I wish we could see more of this. I wish we could see some Hannah. I wish we could see some Craig Jones. And you know what? The episode fucking paid it off for me later because we get a little Hannah coaching later. And that's great too. Now, we haven't had a whole lot of striking coaching happening. We get a bit of Volk on the pads with Gilbert. But, you know, some striking coaching would be good too. What we do get is a little bit of sparring, because sparring and rolling would be fun to watch as well. You know, we're here to watch fights, and they're not real fights, sparring and rolling. But, you know, it's close too. It's people working out the skills that they're going to do in it. Problem is, when we do see the sparring in this one, it's what starts the main story of the whole episode. It's Hunsinger sparring with Trayshawn, and he throws a kick that kind of hits Trayshawn's elbow, hyperextends Hunsinger's knee, and it causes the injury. And just before I get into talking about that injury a little bit, we got another little package of Gilbert Urbina, and it showed some of his past fights, one in particular. And I remember when it was showing it, I was like, this dude he's fighting in this highlight looks like Sean fucking Brady. And there was a big tat on the dude's back he was fighting, and I didn't remember Brady's tat. It's just, I remember what he looks like, you know, haircut and his body type and his face to a degree and stuff. And I was like, I need to check that out. Because if this is Sean Brady that he's fighting, that's fucking pretty good that he's getting these fucking shots in against him. And look, it was Sean Brady. I don't know if any of you have heard of Sean Brady, but he's in the UFC, he's in the welterweight division, and he's been fucking looking untouchable ever since he came into the UFC. He debuted against Court McGee, who, funnily enough, is the guy in the Tough Rewind, which was kind of nice too. The inspirational story of him overcoming drug abuse, him losing his first fight controversially in the house, coming back from injury replacement, and then going on to win the season. But I digress. Sean Brady comes in, dominates Court McGee. He's now 4-0, and his last fight was against Jake Matthews, who, me being Australian, I'm a big Jakey Boy Celtic Kid fan. And look, he pretty much put it to Jake Matthews. And Jake's no slouch. Jake's been looking better than ever the last couple of years, especially since he's gone up to welterweight. And Sean Brady pretty much dominated him, and in grappling, which is Jake's fucking main thing. So that they showed Urbina getting some real good shots off on Brady. Now, spoiler alert, he did lose that fight against Brady. That's the one fight he's lost. He's 6-1. His one loss is against Sean Brady, and he was doing that well. I was like, oh shit, maybe I got to pay attention to this Urbina kid. All right, and now talking about the injury. Like I said before, it happened in sparring. Hyperextended his knee. This is Huntsinger. Hyperextended his knee, kicking Trayshawn's elbow. When he first came back into the house after getting his scan, you could see the Volkanovski team were already sniffing it out. It's like sharks smelling blood in the water. Because he came home late and he's like, oh, just getting some extracurriculars in. And they're like, yeah, I'm sure. And he's trying not to limp in the house and everything. Later in the episode, they said they weren't sure. They didn't know. But there were rumblings around the house that maybe he did get injured. So, look, it seems like he hit it pretty well in the house. But it was immediately popping up on the Volkanovski's team radar straight away. And then he gets the results to the scans. I did think it was kind of weird that he didn't want his coaching team in there. But besides that, we get the results of the scans. Turns out he's got a grade 2 MCL tear, which the doctor himself says, look, if it was grade 1, I'd say go fight. If it was grade 3, I'd say no way you're fighting. Grade 2 is right on the fence, and I can't even tell you. Dana spins this later, as in doctor gave him clearance. Fucking doctor gave him clearance. He just dogged out. And I've got some shit to say about Dana later. You wait. But Hunsinger gets that news, goes back to the team, talks to them about it. Look, in the room, they seemed good. They were supportive of him. It did seem they were trying to nudge him into fighting, which is fine. But they said, we'll support you no matter what. And then they got him to go out, move a bit on it. And he was like, I've got no range of movement here. I'm feeling weak on the knee. I can't turn on it. I can't pivot on it for my strikes or push off it to shoot my takedowns, which is his main thing. And he's like, look, if I need to get surgery for this, I'm fucked. Let's remember, these guys are entry-level fighters into the UFC. They're not even in the UFC yet. At the level they're fighting, they make very little money for very big risk. And even if they get into the UFC, they're still on piddly little Ultimate Fighter contracts, which are like fucking 5 and 5 or something like that. 5 to show and 5 to win. Something along those lines. So he's like, if I need to get major surgery, and I don't know for sure, but I would imagine if it happened on the show, the health insurance from the UFC would cover the surgery. But then you're like, there's more than just fucking surgery costs to think about. He'd be out. Because if it did turn into a fucking grade 3 tear where he needed surgery, he'd be out for months, maybe even a year, with no income to earn. And he already wasn't making much before he got in. He's not making much being on the show. They're not even getting paid to fight on the show. They're probably getting a little per diem, as reality show people often get. But that's hardly anything. And yeah, they got their food and shit covered while they're in the house. That's for the 6 weeks they're in the house. What about the months while he's fucking injured? And also, having such a thing like fuck your career up so early before you're even in the UFC. I can understand. And he knows he's going in because it shows later in the episode that he's pretty close with Gilbert. He knows Gilbert can fight. He knows Gilbert's no joke. He's like, I could get really fucked up here. And I don't blame him at all for saying, look, I don't feel like I can get in there and risk my entire leg and a big chunk of my career when I'm earning hardly anything and there's not much riding on it. Like, even if I win this fight, I'm still going to have to fight the next fight on this torn leg. I don't blame him for dropping out. And it seemed like Ortega's team was being pretty cool about it at first, but then you get Ortega in his little spotlight interview away from Huntsinger himself and away from the rest of the team. And I got to be honest, I didn't like what he was saying. He was talking a bit of shit, man. He was talking about, if he doesn't take this fight, if he does pull out, he's going to have a stigma that he has to overcome. You know what's a worse stigma than pulling out for a legitimate injury? Being fucking suspended for PEDs. Ortega. For those of you who don't know, Brian Ortega's first fight in the UFC against Mike De La Torre is a no contest because he popped for PEDs and he was fined and had like a 9-month suspension afterwards, and everyone fucking forgets that. Like, people like to get on their high horse about fucking hating PED users, but quite often it's only the ones they already hate. Like, everyone jumps on John Jones's back about it, and TJ's copping a bit. He definitely copped a bit when it happened. He's not copping that much right now. But no one fucking talks about Ortega. It's been fucking swept under the rug, basically. Maybe once in a while you hear someone mention that Ortega popped for PEDs. He got over that stigma. People fucking love this dude. And he's saying this kid who's got an actual fucking MCL tear and doesn't want to risk his future fighting for no money in this fight. I know there's big opportunity, but still, he's got to overcome the stigma. You're the fucking stigma, man. And then later, we get fucking Dana. Dana doing what Dana does. And look, I'm not just a straight up Dana hater. I actually like Dana. I know he's done a lot of great stuff, but there's definitely things he does that pisses me off. And some of the ways he relates to fighters and he tries to swing his dick around and fucking bully them into fucking doing what the UFC wants to do. This is one of the classic examples of that, because he just fucking waltzes in to the little spotlight interviews and he's like, oh man, if this kid pulls out, like, we're looking for the ones trying the hardest and fucking the ones who are ready to risk it all. I'm like, you're not fucking ready to risk it all. You've never stepped into a fucking cage, so you don't know what that's like. You've especially never stepped in on a fucking MCL tear. You wouldn't even jump off of a fucking rock into water. And if you missed it, it was on fucking Looking for a Fight when they were in like Hawaii, I think it was. Dean Thomas jumped off that rock, not from the highest point, but Dean Thomas couldn't even swim. And he jumped off the rock into the water. Matt Serra jumped from the high point where Dana was standing, and fucking he did it easy. A little girl jumped off it like 4 times while Dana was standing there. All these kids from the villages were jumping off this fucking rock. Dana stood there till the sun went down and you couldn't jump off it anymore, and then he had to walk down in shame. You wouldn't jump off a fucking rock in the water, Dana, and you're fucking criticizing this kid for not fucking fighting a legit fucking killer with a torn MCL? Like, get off your goddamn high horse. And like I said, he fucking bullies it. And he gets these narratives in his fucking head. I'm still annoyed that he didn't sign Brendan Luffman on that Contender Series episode. The only person I think he signed that episode was Punahele Soriano. And look, I'm not denying that Puna should have been signed. That's a good sign. He fought well that night, and he hasn't been beaten in the UFC since. He's actually fighting this weekend. Brendan Allen, very tough fight for him. That's going to be a fucking great fight. Who knows? It might be his first loss. But Brendan Luffman was the best fucking performer on that entire card, and the entire reason Dana didn't sign him is because he went for a takedown at the end instead of going for the finish. It's like he gets this narrative in his head. Like I said, he walks into the fucking interview to Who Gets On, and he's like, Contender Series is all about fucking who's going to be exciting and blah, blah, blah. And this guy going for a takedown at the end, like, he showed me he didn't want to finish the fight. You ignore the fucking 2 rounds and 4 minutes and 50 seconds of the third round that he completely dominated his opponent better than anyone else on the fucking card that night. You're always going on about fucking UFC is the best. We signed the best. We want the best. Brendan Luffman was the best that night. And you fucking didn't fucking sign him because he went for a takedown in the last 10 seconds? A lot of people, I've seen that happen a million times, and the commentators are always like, that's smart. That's a smart thing to do. He's fucking securing the victory. You don't want to fucking flash knockdown at the end when you've dominated a fight for almost its entirety. But Dana's like, nah, fuck this guy. Guess what? Since then, Brendan Luffman's gone 4-0 in his next 4 fights after that one. 3 of them in the PFL. If you don't know what the PFL is, that's what WSOF, like, it used to be WSOF. It's PFL now. It's like the 3rd best fucking organization in America. You got UFC, Bellator, PFL. It's probably in the top 5 in the world. I'd say battling out for number 2 are ONE FC and Bellator. And then PFL's in the conversation for coming in under them into the top 5. I know you got Russian ones like M1 Global, and you got Japanese ones like Ryzen and shit like that. But fucking PFL's right up there. You want to know some people who've done well in PFL and come over and fucking shot to the top of the UFC? Marlon Moraes, Justin Gaethje. These are the types of people coming out of PFL, and fucking Brendan Luffman's just gone on a 3-fight win streak in there. The last guy he beat being Tyler Diamond, who was another fucking Ultimate Fighter competitor. So who knows? Maybe PFL, because I know the UFC signs people up on a 3-fight contract. So maybe PFL does the same thing, and they had him for 3 fights, and now they might negotiate. But if Brendan Luffman doesn't come to the UFC soon, it's because Dana has a fucking grudge, I'm telling you. Because you know who is in the UFC? Bill Aggio. The guy Luffman dominated on The Ultimate Fighter. He's had 3 fights in the UFC. He's gone 1-2. His debut was against Ricardo Lamas on short notice, so no fucking shame there. He beat Spike Carlisle, which is like, you know, that's decent. It's not the best win in the world, but it's a good win. And then he lost to Ricardo Ramos, who's also very good. So no shame in his losses, but he's had 3 fucking fights in the UFC, and Luffman dominated him. And Dana won't put him in the UFC yet, by the looks of things. Who knows? Could change. But I just went on a fucking rant there. It is wino rants. But that's my point about Dana. He just wants to fucking bully people into doing what he wants them to do, not thinking about, 1, that their health's on the fucking line every time they step into the cage, and 2, their entire livelihood and their career and their fucking potential legacy is fucking on the line here. So to shit on a kid for not fighting with a torn MCL, what are you fucking doing, Dana? All right, so I've had my rant about Dana and a little bit about Ortega, but mostly about Dana. So moving on, we've got the guy who got called in to replace Huntsinger. And this is a nice story. Fair enough. Michael Gilmore. Dana says he got goosebumps from it, and I can see why. It is good how he didn't have the best record. He didn't make it on the show. He came out to Vegas to try out for it, and he decided, I'm going to stay in Vegas on my own dime. His job said, you got to come back here or you're fired. And he said, fuck it, I'll quit my job, and hoping that he'd get this opportunity, and it came along for him. And this was the beginning of what I thought, because the way it was edited, I was like, they're editing this for the Cinderella story. Oh, because I'm a Team Volk guy. I've said it from the start, being Australian. I'll give everyone a chance, but being Australian, I want Team Volkanovski to do well, so I am kind of pulling for Urbina here. And the way they were editing leading up to the fight, I was thinking, oh shit, it's going to be one of these big upsets and it's going to be a fucking Cinderella moment. Because, yeah, they had Dana talking about him coming in. They had him being all motivational about, you know, this is your chance and you got to grab it and everything like that. But we'll see what happened in the fight. I'll talk about that later. But we get to weigh-ins, and Team Volkanovski still doesn't even know that that Hunsinger's pulling out. Dana comes walking in with Gilmore, and they're like, "Oh, who's this guy? Oh, is this Dana's bodyguard?" Ha 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 ha, making little jokes. And Dana gets to the front and he says, "Hunsinger, like, you want to say what's going on?" And Hunsinger has to tell everyone that he's pulling out. And I got to say, this is an example of Trayshawn being a real dude. Trayshawn is real ass, because when Hunsinger comes out and he says he's out, Trayshawn's like, "Oh, really? You got to be kidding me, dude." And Hunsinger's like, "Yeah, I'm out." And he's like, "Ah, shit." And he gives him a big hug, and you can tell that, like, he's feeling for him, and he didn't want him to have to drop out. And then later we see Trayshawn being a real dude when they're given their fight picks, and Trayshawn's like, "I'm going to go with Urbina," even though Urbina's on the opposite team, because Urbina's got along well with Hunsinger. Trayshawn said Hunsinger has been one of his best friends in there, so I'm guessing Trayshawn, Urbina, and Hunsinger have all been buddies. And Trayshawn, even though he's not on fucking Urbina's team in this thing, is like, "Hey, man, this is my guy. I know about him. Nothing against the new guy coming in, but I don't know much about him, and I'm going to go with Gilbert." So, yeah, Trayshawn had a couple of two like real dude moments, and it just gave me even more respect for Trayshawn than I already had. But Volkanovski gets a bit pissed off because he says, not that they're springing it on him and stuff, which was a little fuck that Team Ortega knew what was going on and Team Volkanovski didn't. That's a little shonky. But more that he said that the whole coaching team were like chirping the whole time. Now, chirping in Australia, if you guys don't know, if you're watching and you're not Australian, it's kind of like banter, but it's like kind of happy and playful banter. Like, oh, they're all in a good mood. And I imagine Volkanovski's point was that one of your team members is having to pull out. His whole life could be fucked. Like, he was really looking forward to this. He was staking a lot of his future on this. And he's gone and he's missed this opportunity. And you're all just fucking kicking back thinking it's all fun and games. And they edited a bit where you didn't quite see that. You saw Volk making his point and they kind of cut it off and shit. And you saw Dana fucking step in and say, "Just let me say the doctor fucking cleared him," and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, fucking Dana, that's not the point. That's not the fucking point. You didn't have the knee, so you don't know how it felt moving on it. You don't know what type of movement you need to fight because you've never fucking done it. I mean, he had a few boxing matches apparently when he was younger, but he's never fucking fought at this level. And the point Volkanovski seemed to be making to me was, regardless of how a guy falls out, you shouldn't be sitting there all happy-go-lucky about one of your fucking team members having to pull out because of an injury. And I fucking completely agree with him. But anyway, let's get to the fight. All right, and now we get to the fight. And as I said at the start, this one was over quickly. And the way the editing was going, I've already said it, but it seemed to me like they were fucking setting up for a Gilmore win. Really hyping up that Cinderella story angle. And to be honest, the way they've hyped that up so much, I bet Gilmore's going to at least get a shot on the finale card. How they often have guys who lost in the show earlier fight on the card. And if you win that, you get more fights in the UFC. I bet they'll give him a shot for coming in on short notice and for his story. They'll give him a shot with a full fight camp. But anyway, I've just kind of given it away, haven't I? They subverted our fucking expectations. He didn't fucking win. They were setting up that fucking Cinderella story. And Urbina, like, they could have had a story going with him too. They did talk about it a little bit with the brothers and the dynasty of the Urbinas and getting the mocker off their back, finally getting a win in the UFC, and could this be it? And they did mention that a little, but the way they were building it seemed like they were focusing way more on the Cinderella story of the coming in late than the Cinderella story of two brothers have already fought and they've both lost, and here's the third one giving it a crack. But we get to the fight, and look, Urbina comes out. I almost said Hunsinger. Fucking Gilmore kind of faints almost, but it didn't seem like a feint. It seemed like he went to throw one of these leg kicks that he was really high on when he was talking about his game leading into the fight in one of the earlier packages, how he almost finished a guy with leg kicks. He goes to throw one of those ones, and he kind of pulls it back halfway. Like I said, didn't feel like a feint. Felt like he didn't quite have the confidence that it was there. Urbina throws out a couple little punches, like trying to get range, and then fucking Gilmore throws a leg kick with the other leg. Gilbert catches it, throws a punch, and down goes Gilmore. Not like a knockdown or something, but like just kind of rushes through the kick catch and throwing the punch, and off balance kind of knockdown. They said he shot on him, like both Ortega and Gilmore, when they're wrapping up the fight afterwards, go, oh, we didn't expect him to shoot on him like that. He didn't shoot on him. He caught a kick and rushed forward with a punch. He didn't shoot a fucking takedown. And Gilmore goes down. He immediately flips to his stomach and tries to get up and work his way to his feet. But Urbina jumps straight on his back, and they're towards the cage at this point. Urbina with his back to the cage and on Gilmore's back on the ground. And look, Hannah was doing some real good coaching here. You could hear Hannah coaching Gilmore quite a lot and what to do and how to get out of it and everything. But Gilbert was just kind of anticipating it all. I guess that's kind of the problem in a quiet arena too. You can hear what the opposing coach is saying and you can anticipate it. And he starts throwing some real heavy fucking ground and pound from behind. Twice in a week. I know this is a pre-recorded fucking show, so this didn't happen this week. But to see it twice in a week when you hardly ever see it, because on the weekend we saw Billy Q actually finish Gabriel Benitez, Billy Quarantillo, actually finish Gabriel Benitez with strikes when Billy was on his back on the ground, like not on top on the back, on bottom back, if that makes sense, with the body triangle in, usually a rear naked choke position, but fucking throwing punches over and hitting around and fucking getting him and really damaging that. And look, Gilbert started throwing some of those, and the ref even fucking warned it. Before that happened, fucking Hannah was calling out for fucking 12-6. I think it was Mark Goddard that was a ref. It was definitely an English dude. And he's gone, that's not 12-6. And Hannah's like, okay. And he threw another one, and before Hannah could even say something, Goddard's like, not even close to 12-6. So Goddard was right on top of that. But anyway, yeah. Gilbert's throwing these heavy shots from the back, and Goddard's like, you're going to have to move. And as fucking Gilmore moves, Gilbert just fucking throws an arm straight underneath Gilmore's neck, locks up the rear naked choke, and it was done real quick. Like maybe about a minute into the round. Rear naked choke, finish, perfect performance by Urbina. And he finally got the Urbina monkey off the family's back. They got a win on tough. Good work. Good work, Gilbert. All right, and there was still more show after the fight. Another reason why I thought this was quite a good episode. Some good drama and tension and storylines before the fight. Fight was a bit quick. You'd like to take that to take up a bit more airtime, but it was still entertaining. And then we get the semi-final picks at the end. So, you know what? It probably worked out that it was a quick fight, that you could get all this other stuff in that was actually interesting, as opposed to other weeks where it was just filler fluff trying to get to the fight. And I always enjoy watching the picks. Fucking once again, Dana talked a bit of shit at the end of the picks here, because he was right in the first thing he said, that usually the coaches come in and they're at odds and they both want their picks and there's a bit of fucking back and forth about them trying to get their way. But this time, fucking Ortega and Volkanovski both seem to be pretty much on the same page. And that was true. But the thing that Dana said that was a bit of talking shit was he was like, they just came in and said, they don't really care. I can do whatever I want. And that's not what they said. They both definitely had picks for what they wanted to see. The biggest one I remember being like, Vince didn't want to fight Ricky because they're teammates. And I was just thinking, don't fucking do it, Dana. Because when Dana said, oh, they just walked in and said, I can do whatever I want, I just felt it coming that he wouldn't go with their actual picks. That just because they agreed on it doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. Even though at the end of the them picking thing, Volk did say something along the lines of do what you want. But look, before that, they'd given reasons and they'd given actual matchups and reasons for those matchups that they wanted to happen. So I was like, please, Dana, don't just fuck it up and do whatever the hell you want. Go along with their picks. And he did for the most parts. And those picks, I'll go into them in a future video later this week, because I am planning to not only tell you what those semi-final matchups are, but I'm going to do predictions for who I think's going to win those semi-final matchups and be in the finale. So watch out for that one, hopefully in the next few days, but definitely before the next episode. I'm the Wino. Hope you've enjoyed this format. And I hope you enjoyed that episode, because to be honest, I did. All right. Wino out.